1 minute ago, Gerard Butler, the indomitable Spartan king of 300, sat down for a never-before-aired interview and dropped a revelation that will change how you watch the 2006 epic forever. In an exclusive conversation, Butler confided the secret that evaded even the most devoted fan theories: a hidden storytelling layer woven into key battle scenes, a meta-narrative motif buried under layers of slow-motion spear throws, and a deliberate visual cue that ties Sparta's downfall to an ancient philosophical paradox. Tonight, we peel back the digital blood spatter and stylized slow-mo to expose the filmmaker's covert code, one that redefines the heroism and tragedy of King Leonidas's last stand. It begins with a flash of crimson dust in the air, then a flicker in the corner of Leonidas's shield, a faint rune symbol borrowed from Heraclitus's fragment on Constant Flux. Few noticed it in theaters. Fewer still connected its appearance to an entire subplot about fate versus free will. Gerard explains how that single glyph, when combined with subtle score shifts in Hans Zimmer's theme, signals an unseen spiritual crisis haunting every Spartan warrior. Beyond hidden symbols, Butler reveals he improvised a crucial line during the Battle of Thermopylae sequence, one the editors left in by design. As Leonidas raises his spear against the immortals, he mutters under his breath, "We stand in the breath of gods," a phrase absent from Frank Miller's original graphic novel. But Gerard says that murmur encapsulates a Spartan creed. Courage isn't simply defiance of death, but an affirmation of living within the tension of eternity. That layer of meaning, he argues, turns the film from a testosterone-fueled spectacle into a meditation on the human spirit. Then comes the story of the tipping camera shot, an iconic sequence in which the camera jettisons into the sky just as King Leonidas falls. Everyone assumed this was purely a stylistic flourish by director Zack Snyder. Gerard now discloses it was engineered to mirror the Stoic doctrine of perspective shift, inviting viewers to adopt a cosmic vantage point at the Spartans' moment of defeat. He even shares an anecdote of Snyder sketching Greek scroll motifs on storyboards to explain the idea, supplanting mere aesthetics with ancient wisdom. We'll also dive into the nearly cut oracle sequence Gerard fought to keep. In deleted scenes, Queen Gorgo visits a blind prophet to foretell Sparta's dire fate. Gerard recounts how he lobbied producers to retain a brief exchange, Leonidas reading from a chipped amphibolite tablet, because it frames the Spartan code within a prophecy cycle, elevating his final act from military heroism to ritual sacrifice. That scene, he insists, is the connective tissue between 300 and its later sequel, yet it remains unknown to most fans. As part of tonight's special report, we'll break down a never-released storyboard documenting the Velites, Sparta's light infantry, marching to a muted drum beat echoing far off in the canyon. Butler reveals how the tempo changes in that unseen reel mirror a heartbeat, slowing as Leonidas faces death. We'll show you frame-by-frame comparisons between theatrical cuts and prophecy test edits, illustrating how small sound cues carry enormous emotional weight. This interview also uncovers the clandestine Spartan oath Butler wrote himself, scrawled on the back of his call sheet during filming. He insisted on speaking that oath under his breath in each scene, cementing a through-line of loyalty that no amount of CGI could erase. That micro-performance choice, Gerard explains, gave his character a depth readers of Miller's comic never encountered. Stay with us as we decode every hidden element, mythological, philosophical, and cinematic, that made 300 more than a blockbuster. We'll hear from Zack Snyder himself about storyboarding ancient stoicism, consult with a classics professor on Spartan symbolism, and reveal fan-made VFX tests that nearly went official. By the end of this deep dive, you'll never watch 300 the same way again. Straight after our explosive introduction, Gerard Butler sits back in his chair, eyes alight, and begins to unravel the director's secret plan. He explains that during the famed shield wall sequence, the camera operators were instructed to track the movement of broken Spartans in concentric rings. Those subtle rotations mirror the ancient Pythagorean concept of the harmony of spheres, he reveals, reinforcing that Sparta's unity was rooted in cosmic alignment. Every time you watch that circle break and reform, Butler says, you're witnessing the collapse of a philosophical ideal, and his face flushes with conviction. Few viewers ever caught that rhythm, but now you will. He pauses to sip water, then leans forward and confides a long-kept secret about the opening epigraph. The line from Herodotus, "A small band of Spartans stood against millions," was not chosen at random, he asserts. It was part of a larger textual code. Each word's letter count corresponds to a numerical sequence that maps to specific battle tactics. Butler chuckles. "When I first saw the board in the producer's office, my head spun like a Spartan helmet." That mnemonic device, he explains, guides the film's editing decisions, creating subliminal echoes of falling phalanxes hidden within every cut. Next, Gerard taps a tablet loaded with a prototype app developed during pre-production. He opens an annotated script page that highlights micro-expressions he used in the "this is where we hold them" speech. See that brief narrowing of the eyes on line 7? That's not for the camera. It's a duelist's signal in ancient Spartan ritual. I borrowed it from a documentary on Doric dialects. In real time, the app slows the footage, revealing a barely perceptible glance toward his right flank, an homage to the practice of acknowledging one's neighbor before sudden combat. By dissecting this nuance, Butler transforms a blockbuster speech into an artifact of cultural tribute. He then shares the story of the rain scenes. You'll remember the torrential downpour as Leonidas storms into Persian lines. Butler recounts how rain was more than atmosphere. The production team harvested water from real marshlands near Sardinia, mixing it with natural clay to mirror the blood-red coating of the soil. Every drop carried sediment from the same ancient riverbeds that nourished classical Sparta, he says. When the mud spatters across our armor, it isn't just red paint, it's ancestral dust. That commitment to authenticity, Butler notes, turned a stylized shot into a primal immersion, connecting audiences to the tactile reality of ancient battlefields. Pressing onward, Gerard describes the unscripted moment when he and Rodrigo Santoro improvised the "Together We Dine in Hell" exchange. It was not in the storyboard, he stresses, but emerged from a heated discussion on set about moral choice. Rodrigo asked, "What if Persia had a point?" And I snapped back, "Then we would still dine in hell." The editor loved the tension, kept the take, and wove their heated breaths into the final track. Fans might assume that line was a purely theatrical flourish, but Butler reveals it signified a subplot about Persian valor that was ultimately cut, but left its DNA in the audio ambience. Then comes the revelation about the tipping camera shot, when the view rockets into the sky just as Leonidas falls. Gerard now discloses it was engineered to mirror the Stoic doctrine of perspective shift, inviting viewers to adopt a cosmic vantage point at Sparta's moment of defeat. He shares an anecdote of director Zack Snyder sketching Greek scroll motifs on storyboards to explain the concept, supplanting mere aesthetics with ancient wisdom. That artistic choice, he says, turns the fall of one man into the downfall of an entire worldview. He next dives into the haunting score shifts. Hans Zimmer's theme alternates between percussion and solo violin at precise narrative beats. Butler explains that those shifts correspond to the 4 classical humors diagram: blood, phlegm, black bile, and yellow bile, mapping Spartan emotional resilience to physiological states. When the music dips into a minor violin mode, you are hearing the bitter taste of black bile, signaling Leonidas's looming mortality. That scientific detail, Butler emphasizes, was so obscure that nearly every music editor thought it was just artistic flair. Finally, Butler decodes the film's final frame: the Spartans gathered in a ring around Leonidas's fallen body. Most viewers see only defiance, but he implores them to notice the 7-pointed star pattern formed by the shields. That motif is borrowed from Pythagorean geometry and symbolizes the unity of mind, body, and spirit. He lifts a hexagonal shield replica, tracing each vertex, and explains how Snyder designed the formation to hint at Leonidas's transformation from mortal king into mythic martyr. By the end of this revelation, 300 no longer feels like just a visceral spectacle. It emerges as a philosophical tapestry, every chunk of mud, every whispered line, every camera tilt carrying hidden meaning. Gerard Butler leans back with a satisfied nod. "Now you understand what most fans never figured out," he says, voice lowering. "That's the secret code we lived by in thermofilm." And just like that, the Spartan legend expands. inviting you to rewatch the epic with fresh eyes and a mind tuned to the subtler harmonies beneath the clashing spears. Next, Gerard dives into the nearly cut oracle sequence, a prophetic vignette hidden for years in the film's rough cuts. He explains that during early edits, Zack Snyder had inserted a haunting interlude in which Queen Gorgo seeks out a blind seer atop Mount Parnassus. Though deleted from the theatrical release, raw storyboards survive, mapping out a 5-minute scene in which the oracle intones a cryptic refrain: "When pillars bleed, Olympus will weep." Butler insists this refrain frames the entire narrative, foreshadowing Sparta's collapse as a cosmic outcry rather than mere military defeat. He recalls lobbying producers on set to keep a brief exchange, Leonidas reading from a chipped amphibolite tablet after visiting the seer. "I begged, let me whisper that line under my breath when I return to the phalanx," Butler says, eyes lighting up. "It anchors my resolve in something ancient and mystical." While only a few seconds remained in the director's cut, those seconds resonate, linking Leonidas's personal vow to a prophecy cycle steeped in Greek ritual. Butler reveals that early fan tests who saw rough-cut screenings reported goosebumps whenever the tablet line echoed beneath the clashing shields. Gerard then pulls up scanned images of the tablet itself, a weathered slab inscribed in archaic Greek, translated beneath as "the blood of pillars calls forth a new dawn." Butler explains that Zack Snyder commissioned a philologist to ensure authentic syntax, and the tablet was physically carved by artisans to match museum-grade replicas. When the brief prophecy flashes on screen, first obscured by swirling dust, then etched in firelight, it creates a subliminal link between Leonidas's sacrifice and the collapse of old orders. Viewed this way, Leonidas is not only defending his homeland, but fulfilling an oracle's design. Moving to the Velite sequence, Butler displays never-released reel comparisons that spotlight a muted drum cadence originally scored to accompany Sparta's light infantry advance. In early test edits, the Velites march in slow motion to a deep tom-tom pulse, barely audible, like a heartbeat cloaked in velvet. Gerard explains that Hans Zimmer's team aligned each percussion stroke with a pulse chart derived from contemporary anthropological research on Hellenic war dances. At precise intervals, the beat slows as the Velites cross thresholds of limestone outcrops, symbolizing liminal spaces between life and death. Butler says cinematographer Larry Fong rotated the camera ever so slightly, just 1 degree per shot, to emphasize that transition, a detail invisible at normal speed but stark in frame-by-frame analysis. He then introduces the Spartan oath he scrawled on the back of his call sheet in Athens, a ritual pledge of unity among cast members. Butler recites it now. "I swear by Apollo's endless sun to stand as one with Spartan kin. In death we rise, in darkness shine." He reveals how he whispered this formula at the start of every battle scene, weaving his own micro-performance into Leonidas's epic resolve. Editors discovered the whispered pledge tucked in the ambient audio track, just beneath the clang of bronze, when cleaning up noise. Rather than erase it, Snyder embraced the echo, letting the oath become a ghostly undercurrent, binding the Spartan chorus in an unspoken pact. Gerard next details fan-made VFX tests that nearly became official. He shows early concept clips in which the immortals emerge not from mist, but from mirrored flames shaped like Hermes' heraldic wings. These tests were scrapped for budget reasons, but Butler reveals that the final design retained subtle feather patterns molded into each mask. As Leonidas strikes at one masked figure, a single ember fleck drifts skyward, shaped like a Hermes wing, and homage hidden in plain sight. Butler points out the moment in high resolution. Look for a tiny wing silhouette curling in the ember's trail. Addressing the film's color palette, Butler explains that the famous sepia-toned interval frames were graded using a custom LUT lookup table Snyder called Spartan Blindfold, named after the morning ritual of cutting cloth strips. At key emotional junctures, the palette shifts to muted cyan, representing an otherworldly realm beyond mortal perception. Gerard recounts how both he and cinematographer Fong wore prism glasses on set to pre-visualize the effect, calibrating each shot so the color bleed on their spear points matched the ancient dye formulas mentioned in Pliny's Natural History. Finally, Butler discloses his proudest improvisation, a micro-gesture during the Watchman pincer move when he signals his lieutenant with a finger raised to his lips. While viewers saw only a command for silence, Butler explains it was borrowed from a Spartan ritual of mutual trust, shushing one's comrade before a sacred oath. That gesture originates in a Hellenic vase painting he studied, showing two hoplites swearing loyalty in hushed tones. By integrating that silent nod, Butler says he honored an essential facet of Spartan brotherhood. As Gerard leans back, he smiles and declares, "That's what most fans never figured out. 300 isn't just about spears and slow-mo. It's a living tapestry of philosophy, ritual, and coded homage." With that, he raises an imaginary spear and salutes the camera, inviting viewers to rewatch the epic, armed with fresh eyes attuned to every secret layer and hidden tribute. Gerard next dissects the epic Sea of Shields sequence, where the Spartans lock shields in perfect formation against waves of Persians. He reveals that each shield bears an engraved line pattern drawn from a scrambled verse in Pindar's Olympic Odes. Production designer Patrick Tatopoulos crafted 7 prototype shields, each inscribed with a unique couplet cycling through a 2-minute slow-motion impact sequence. Butler explains that at frame 178, a Persian spear grazes one shield and momentarily illuminates the full inscription in the rain-soaked glare. Strength in unity outlives shadow's breath. Snyder hid this rune intentionally, so only the most eagle-eyed viewers would glimpse Sparta's philosophical creed etched in bronze. Few noticed those fleeting runes, but now you'll know to watch for them amid the thunderous clang of spears. He then reveals a sly cameo of Frank Miller himself. During the Immortals charge, a miniature figure brandishing a pen instead of a sword appears carved into a cliff face behind Leonidas. That tiny relief is Miller's self-portrait, etched by set sculptors at the graphic novelist's insistence, scaled down so it registers only when you pause the frame. It's cheeky, Butler laughs, but it reminds us that behind every slash of a spear is an artist's vision. Snyder agreed to leave it in as a signature nod to Miller's authorship of the original comic, a private Easter egg for dedicated fans. Next, Butler focuses on subtle audio cues mistaken for ambient wind. He points out whispering murmurs echoing through the canyon right before Leonidas yells his rallying cry. Played at high fidelity, you hear a Doric prayer to Ares, in Kellen Harai, or Grant Us the Passage, recorded on location in Sparta by sound designer Craig Hayes. Hayes masked that recording beneath wind effects, so the chant registers subconsciously, planting a ritual invocation before every battle. Every time Leonidas shouts, Butler says, he's backed by ancestral supplicants. That haunted whisper amplifies the film's mythic atmosphere, merging religion and combat in a single auditory stroke. Turning to the nearly cut oracle sequence, Butler displays storyboards of a deleted interlude in which Queen Gorgo visits a blind seer atop Mount Parnassus. The prophet's refrain, "When pillars bleed, Olympus will weep," foreshadows Sparta's fate as cosmic lament. Butler had lobbied to keep a moment in the director's cut, Leonidas whispering that prophecy under his breath upon rejoining the phalanx. He recalls test audiences reporting goosebumps whenever that line echoed beneath clashing shields, binding Leonidas's personal vow to an ancient cycle of sacrifice. Though largely unseen, those seconds transform the king's stand into ritual fulfillment. He then decodes the Velite sequence. Early VFX tests paired the light infantry's advance with a muted tom-tom heartbeat, synchronized to anthropological studies of Hellenic war dances. Cinematographer Larry Fong rotated the camera 1 degree per shot to emphasize each liminal crossing of limestone outcrops. Butler points out that minute rotation and frame-by-frame comparisons, a visual echo of life transitioning to death. That buried heartbeat drum, he says, turns the Velite's charge into a pulse-driven rite of passage. Butler also shares his own Spartan oath, scrawled on the back of his Greek call sheet. "I swear by Apollo's endless sun to stand as one with Spartan kin. In death we rise, in darkness shine." He whispered that pledge under his breath at the start of every battle take. The editors discovered it in the ambient track, just beneath the clang of bronze, and Snyder opted to leave that spectral echo as a binding undercurrent of loyalty. He uncovers nearly lost VFX tests in which immortals emerge from mirrored flames shaped like Hermes' wings. Although scrapped, tiny feather patterns remain embossed in each mask, visible only in high-resolution close-ups. When Leonidas shatters one mask, a single ember fleck curls skyward in a wing silhouette, an homage hidden in plain sight. Color grading offers more secrets. Snyder devised a custom LUT called Spartan Blindfold, shifting from sepia to cyan at key emotional beats. Butler and Fong wore prism glasses on set to preview how armor glints would register under those hues, tying visual shifts to Greek dye recipes cited in Pliny's Natural History. Finally, he decodes the final tableau: fallen Spartans arranged in a seven-pointed star formation around Leonidas's body. That motif, Butler explains, is lifted from Pythagorean geometry, symbolizing mind, body, and spirit in harmony. By embedding those Platonic solids into battlefield choreography, Snyder turned the King's Last Stand into a centerpiece of cosmic design. Leaning back, Butler grins and salutes. Once you know what to look for, every frame of 300 becomes a tapestry of deeper meaning. Gerard leans forward again, excitement in his eyes, as he unveils the hidden code embedded in the film's costume designs. He explains that each Spartan warrior's cloak hue corresponds to a specific value rubric drawn from the 12 zodiac constellations. Leonidas's deep crimson cape aligns with Aries, the ram, signifying martial courage and leadership. Meanwhile, the younger Spartans wear capes tinted in secondary colors: Pisces blues, Gemini ambers, each mapped to behavioral virtues in ancient Hellenic astrology. Butler chuckles as he recounts how costume designer Michael Wilkinson knitted custom wool blends to achieve an exact Pantone match. When you watch the phalanx move, Butler says, you're not just seeing armor, you're witnessing a walking tapestry of celestial allegory. He then shares a nearly invisible tribute to Spartan agriculture: the olive branch motif subtly etched into the leather straps of each shield. Butler recalls spotting the tiny engraving, a delicate sprig, during a crew wrap party when a prop master pointed it out. That motif is more than decoration. It symbolizes the olive's role in peace offerings, reminding viewers that Sparta once valued diplomacy before perpetual war. Snyder left the carvings in low relief so they only catch light at a narrow angle, rewarding fans who pause for close examination. Turning to the film's opening scroll, Butler discloses an Easter egg. Each description line's first letter, when read vertically, spells Méliès. It honors pioneering filmmaker Georges Méliès, whose innovative trick shots inspired 300 stylized slow-motion effects. Gerard says he first noticed the pattern in his own preliminary script draft and insisted on preserving the acronym. That micro-homage, he insists, weaves cinema history into the narrative, bridging 1902's A Trip to the Moon with 2000 SIX's digital marvels. Next, Butler reveals insider details about the Persian's armor. Its segmented lamellar plates were coated in a thin film of fermented grape extract to simulate royal gold. That technique traces back to Byzantine metalworking texts, Butler explains, and gave the armor a slightly uneven sheen that glinted unpredictably under heat lamps. During a backdraft, when Persian cavalry charged through smoke, you can catch a fleeting silver flash, evidence of the grape resin finish. It's a romantic nod to ancient forging traditions buried beneath modern CGI. Moving deeper, Butler unpacks the film's narrative symmetry. The sequence of Leonidas's council speech at Sparta's gates mirrors his final rallying address at Thermopylae, not only in dialogue structure, but in identical camera framing. Both scenes open with a three-shot: Leonidas, Dilios, and a lieutenant, then cut to a wide shot, then close on Leonidas's brow. That mirroring, Butler notes, was Zack Snyder's deliberate way of bookending hope and despair. By repeating the pattern, the film underscores the cyclical nature of power and sacrifice, a concept central to Stoic philosophy. Gerard then highlights a nearly lost audio flourish, a faint harp arpeggio layered beneath the Immortals' opening march. According to sound designer Craig Hayes, the harp motif represents the fates at work, unseen forces guiding mortal destinies. Hayes recorded Mediterranean string instruments at the old Odeon of Herod's Atticus, capturing modal scales specific to Athenian tragedies. Mixed at -12 decibels, the harp barely registers unless you isolate the low-end mix. Butler encourages fans to plug in quality headphones and listen for the subtle pluck just before the first clash of bronze, an oral whisper of destiny tightening its grip. He also decodes the color transition in the Burning of Athens sequence. As the city falls, the sky shifts from dusky mauve to lurid magenta in exactly 27 frames, the same number of letters in the Greek word pylambdepsilomyomicron, war. That intentional frame count, Butler reveals, frames the destruction as a calculated act rather than cinematic spectacle. Cinematographer Larry Fong overexposed each frame by one stop, then dialed it back digitally, ensuring the unnatural hue evokes both beauty and horror, a duality intrinsic to conflict. Butler pauses to discuss his own micro-improvisation in the final parley scene with Xerxes. When Leonidas declares, "We know our fields," Gerard ad-libbed a brief, inverted hand gesture borrowed from a Spartan harvest ritual, symbolizing surrender of crops to Dionysus. Snyder caught the gesture on camera and wove it seamlessly into the cut. Few noticed Leonidas lowering his thumb beneath his fingers before gripping his spear again, but Butler insists it visually links king and land in one sacred act. Finally, Gerard zeroes in on the film's epilogue, the image of a single Spartan helmet half buried in sand. Most viewers see a symbol of defeat, but Butler reveals it was intended as a metaphor for renewal, seeds buried in winter soil awaiting spring bloom. That motif draws from inscriptions at the temple of Artemis Orthia, where youths reenacted burial rites to symbolize rebirth. Snyder shot the scene at golden hour, capturing the helmet's shadow stretching long, signifying the dawn of legend from the dust of history. Leaning back, Butler grins. With all these secrets unveiled, every viewing of 300 becomes less about watching an action film and more like reading an ancient text, layer upon layer of meaning. He stands and raises a fist, echoing his Spartan salute. Rewatch it now, and you'll see a world coated in myth, philosophy, and homage. And that's the revelation most fans never figured out. In the wake of these revelations, Gerard Butler reflects on how 300's hidden architecture continues to resonate with audiences and filmmakers alike. He recounts a recent conversation with Zack Snyder, who confessed that fan reactions to the film's secret cues inspired his later work on Watchmen and Justice League. Snyder told Butler that the conflation of myth and method in 300 taught him to trust viewers' curiosity, believing that even the subtlest symbol, when planted deliberately, will reward those willing to look deeper. Butler smiles at the memory, noting that Snyder has since doubled down on Easter eggs in nearly every project, returning to the same philosophy engraved on Leonidas's shield: know thyself, know your world. Equally moved is Dr. Helena Katsouros, a classics professor at Oxford, whom Butler invited to a private screening. Katsouros emerged convinced that 300's visual riddles could serve as teaching tools in her seminars on ancient culture. She plans to assign students to decode the film's layered references, from Pindaric shield inscriptions to Pythagorean geometry in the battlefield formations. It's as though Snyder and Butler created a cinematic palimpsest, she explained, one that invites scholarly dialogue rather than passive consumption. Butler beams at this endorsement, affirming that his mission was always to elevate the spectacle into a conversation about legacy, conflict, and philosophy. But the cultural ripple extends beyond academia. At this year's Toronto International Film Festival, a documentary short premiered titled Beyond the Spear, The Making of 300 Secrets, which intercuts on-set interviews with behind-the-scenes footage of Butler and Snyder mapping codes on chalkboards. Scenes show Butler practicing his micro-gestures in front of a green screen, while costume designers adjust zodiac pigments in real time. The film's executive producer, longtime Nolan collaborator Emma Thomas, said she championed the project because it demystifies the alchemy of blockbuster filmmaking. Butler attended the screening and received a standing ovation when he walked on stage to explain the purpose behind these hidden layers. We wanted to create a story that rewards lifelong fans and challenges new audiences. Press coverage has broadened to include tech innovators as well. A developer in Berlin has built an augmented reality app that recognizes 300 secret runes and overlays textual translations when viewers point their phone cameras at the screen. Hans Zimmer's team even consulted on the app to trigger audio cues, so when your device detects the Fates harp flourish, it pulses your headphone's equalizer to reveal each hidden tone. Gerard calls this intersection of celluloid and smartphone the ultimate embodiment of film evolving in the digital era, marveling at how what began as a studio directive now thrives in fan-driven tech experiments. In Hollywood circles, a new creative mantra has emerged. Don't just tell a story, encrypt it. Producers point to 300 as the blueprint for layering narrative and subtext, encouraging screenwriters to weave nods to mythology, philosophy, or even backstage anecdotes into their scripts. At Warner Brothers, a content division has instituted Easter Egg Labs, a writer's room workshop devoted to crafting and cataloging hidden symbols. Butler laughs at the irony. Back when I was filming, we scribbled codes on napkins and plastered them on shields. Now, it's an industry best practice. Meanwhile, dedicated online communities continue to unearth fresh details. On Reddit and specialized forums, spectators count the fallen shields to match the Fibonacci sequence in the Immortals cavalry charge, or compare the freeze-frame geometry of Leonidas' stance to ancient Dorian column proportions. Some even argue that the pattern of shield dents replicates the star map visible above Thermopylae at precisely midnight on August 19th, 480 BCE. Butler winks at these fan theories, encouraging viewers to keep looking. Because in 300, every frame is a doorway to untold possibilities. As we return to the memory of that first spear throw, Butler offers this final thought. A truly great film lives in the space between spectacle and introspection. When audiences lean in to catch a rune flickering on bronze or hear the faint harps of fate, they transform from passive onlookers into active participants in the mythologizing process. That moment, he says, when you realize you're part of the film's hidden dialogue, that's my favorite battle. So the next time you cue 300, watch for Leonidas's whispered murmurs, the shield inscriptions that glint for a heartbeat, and the color shifts that shape your emotional pulse. Notice the subtle rotations, the harp's invocation, the oracle's shadowed prophecy, and the apostolic oath echoing at the heart of the phalanx. Gerard Butler's final revelation isn't a Hollywood gimmick. It's an invitation to stand beneath the same made-up sky as Spartan warriors, to feel the weight of their philosophy, and to understand at last why 300 is more than an epic. It's a coded testament to the enduring power of story, and a reminder that, sometimes, the greatest triumph lies in the secrets we discover together.